The day of the decisive showdown had arrived. Alright, I said, trying to fire myself up in my room. It was 10 o'clock at night. The battle was due to begin in 2 hours, at exactly midnight. We'd all been told to take the day off from demon work, heading straight home after school. The idea was to be refreshed and rested as possible when the time came for the raiding game. Our plan was to meet in the club room 30 minutes before the beginning of the match. That gave me just over an hour. Still, my bedroom was the place where I could most relaxed, so I wanted to stay here for as long as I could. If I was to go to the club room ahead of time, I wouldn't be able to stop myself from fretting. Even as I tried to rest in my room, I was more nervous than I'd been during my high school entrance exams. I was wearing my school uniform. I thought that was the most appropriate. When I asked the prez whether we should have some sort of team combat uniform, she brushed my question aside with a smile. If my familia had a uniform, it has to be that of Kuo Academy. We are the Occult Research Club after all. Thus, my school uniform had become my battle uniform. That said, I guess I could have gone with a martial arts outfit or something if I wanted to. There was a mountain of banana peels next to me. I had already finished eating the fruit, and I was close to performing my special technique that I had been working on since the first day of our training camp. I can do this. This is my new ultimate technique. Came a sound from my door. It had to have been Azia. Issei, can I come in? She asked. Sure. When she entered the room, I was completely taken aback after seeing her outfit. It was a nun's outfit. Of course, she wasn't carrying any rosaries, nor was she wearing a veil over her head. Azia, what are you... I know. When I asked the president, she told me I could wear whatever I felt most comfortable in. I didn't really know what to choose, but then I thought that this would be the easiest to move around in. I may not be a servant of the Lord anymore, but I haven't renounced my faith, even if I'm a demon now. It seemed Azia had put a lot of thought into it. There was no small amount of courage involved dressing like a nun for a battle between demons. But if that's what she decided, then I wasn't gonna voice any complaint. I was sure Rias would brush it off with a laugh. I see. I suppose you do look most natural in that. Your school uniform suits you too, you know. But seeing as this was what you were wearing when we first met, I guess it's kinda how I always imagined you. It looks good on you. Thank you. Azia's face beamed with heartfelt joy at my compliment. Issei? She said, fidgeting. Can I sit next to you? Sure. She sat herself down next to me on my bed and took my arm, hugging it tight. What's wrong? I asked, worried. I could feel her trembling as she gripped my arm. When I think about the match, I can't stop shaking. I'm scared, but I'll be alright as long as you're there with me. Azia. Yep. I'm not scared when I'm with you, Issei. Can we stay like this until it's time to go? Sure. Can we stay like this forever? Yeah, forever. Thank goodness. I took her trembling hands in my own. We passed a few moments in blissful silence. When it was time for us to leave, I was totally relaxed. Azia had stopped shaking too. It must have been around 11:40 at night. The other members of Rias' familia and I had gathered in the club room in the old school building. Each one of us had tried to pass the time in our own way. Everyone except Azia was wearing their school uniform, albeit with a few modifications. Kiba's hands and wrists were protected by padded coverings, and his lower legs were protected by some kind of armor-like shin guards. He had left his sword leaning by the wall. Konako was sitting in a chair reading a book. Her hands were garbed in a pair of open-fingered gloves, the kind that martial artists used. It was an eerily serious look for such a childlike figure. Akeno and the Prez were sitting on the sofa, elegantly sipping their cups of tea. As was to be expected of the two great ladies, they were composed to the last. Ozzy and I were sitting in our seats, quietly idling away our remaining time. 10 minutes before the match was due to begin, the magic circle in the center of the room lit up, and Grafia made her entrance. "Have you completed your preparations? The match will begin in 10 minutes, she said. We each rose to our feet, and Grafia began her explanation. When it's time, you will all be transported to the arena through your magic circle. That match will take place in the neutral alternative space, a dimension created and set aside solely for this battle. Feel free to fight to your full potential. We will discard the battlefield when you are finished, so don't worry about causing any damage." That makes sense, I thought. An artificial battlefield. I hadn't known that demons were able to create spaces like this. I understood the need for something like that, though. If we were in the fight of either the human realm or the demon world, there was no telling how much damage we could end up causing. A place that could be destroyed without consequence was a perfect location. Putting that aside for a moment, there was still something that I wasn't entirely sure about. Prez? Yes? You said that you had another bishop, right? Is that person coming? When Rias had resurrected Ozzy as a demon, she said that she already had one other bishop. She told me that the person was off somewhere taking care of a special job for her. This situation definitely felt serious enough to warrant them joining us, though. No sooner had I asked this question, however, than everyone's faces, except Ozzy's and my own, turned stiff. The atmosphere had undergone a complete shift. The mood in the room had grown incredibly heavy. For a short while, no one said a word. "I'm afraid my other bishop won't be able to join us," Rias answered, averting her gaze. "We'll have to talk about that sometime soon." Whatever the reason could have been, it was clearly a difficult topic for the Prez. I thought best not to pry any further. Still, I had to wonder what could have been so important that the other bishop wasn't showing up for such an important match. Rias' evasive response just left me with more questions. It was Grafia who broke the sullen atmosphere. "Representatives of both noble houses will be following this rating game by the way of live broadcast." Seriously? They're going to be watching the whole thing? How nice of those high-class demon parents. Still, if Rias' folks were looking on, then I had to be careful of how I presented myself. In addition, his lordship of the Demon King Lucifer will be observing. Do keep that in mind. The Demon King? Now I was really on edge. To think that one of the guys at the top was taking an interest in us. Rias, however, looked shocked. "My brother? I see. So he'll be there too." Had I misheard? Surely Rias hadn't just... I raised my hand with a new question. Prez? Did you just call the Demon King your brother? Did I mishear? You heard her correctly. The president's brother is one of the 4 Demon Kings. It was Kibu who answered. What? A Demon King? Your brother is a Demon King? Yes, Rias answered plainly. Is she serious? Hold on a second, I thought. Rias belongs to the House of Gremory. None of those Demon Kings have that name, though. Lucifer, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Asmodeus. None of them sounded anything like Gremory. Are you wondering why the president's family name is different from those of the Demon Kings? As much as I hated to admit it, Kiba had guessed exactly what I was thinking. Yeah, I nodded with reluctance. The original Demon Kings perished in the Great War. Nonetheless, Demon Society is nothing without its leadership. As such, Kiba went on to explain that the surviving demons decided to grant names of the Demon Kings to their most powerful members. For that reason, The current four Great Demon Kings had inherited their ultimate titles from their predecessors, the first generation. That made sense. Since that was the case, names like Lucifer and Beelzebub were more like titles. To tell you the truth, among the forces of God, the fallen angels, and the demons, we're currently the least powerful faction. The situation is rather precarious, but as our current kings are just as formidable as our forebears, we've been able to endure. Apparently, the Demon Society was hanging on by a thread. It certainly came as a shock to learn that the famous demons written about in the books that you might find in the library were already dead. In that case, you're saying that the Prez's brother was chosen to be one of the ultimate high-class demons? I asked. Kiba nodded. Sir Zex Lucifer, the Crimson Satan. He's both the president's elder brother and the most powerful demon alive. Sir Zex Lucifer. Not Gremory, but Lucifer. It sounded like it wasn't part of her family anymore. So that's why the Prez needs to inherit the House of Gremory? If her elder brother had become the Demon King, then it sounds like she had no other choice in the matter. Her brother had to hold the weight of all Demon Society on his shoulders. That was incredible. His relation to Rhea seemed that much more unbelievable. It's almost time, everyone. Please, step into your magic circle. At Graphia's request, we all gathered in the center of the room. Once you've been transported to the arena, you won't be able to return until the completion of the match, she explained. No coming back until it's over, huh? The insignia of the magic circle shifted into an unfamiliar pattern before erupting with light. It hadn't been the pattern of the Phoenix family either. Perhaps it had been a custom design made especially for the rating game. Those were my last thoughts before we all swallowed by the light and warped to our destination. I opened my eyes. Huh? I tilted my head to the side in bewilderment at what I saw. Anybody would've. I mean, we were still in the club room. Had the magic circle failed? Apart from Ozzy and myself, no one seemed the least bit surprised. Grapefia was conspicuously missing, however. Was she the only one who had successfully made the jump? But at that moment... Welcome, everyone. I, Grapefia, servant of the House of Gremory, will act as arbiter for today's rating game between the House of Gremory and the House of Phoenix. It sounded like a school announcement, but it was Graphia's voice. In the name of his lordship, Sir Zex Lucifer, I will ensure fairness and impartiality of today's proceedings. Based on Lady Reyes's and Lord Riser's mutual wishes, the battlefield will be a replica of the school that Lady Reyes attends in the human world, Kuo Academy. What? Then this is all fake? But it looks identical. Even the decorations and the wear and tear on the walls were exactly the same. My jaw dropped. Then I noticed the sky outside the window was pure white. We'd all met in the club room just before midnight, so that didn't make any sense. Did this replica exist in the same pale, empty dimension then? I had to wonder just how powerful these demons were, if they were able to make an entirely new alternate dimension for the sake of one battle. Both teams have been transported to an area that would serve as their respective home bases. Lady Reyes, your home base will be the club room of the Occult Research Club in the old school building. Lord Riser, yours will be located in the student council room in the new school building. All pawns, please proceed to the immediate vicinity of the opposing team's home base when using a promotion. That was me. Basically, what it meant was I couldn't promote unless I made my way into Riser's camp. Given my attributes as a pawn, finding a way to pull off a promotion was going to be essential if we were going to aim for victory. Just like the game of chess, a promotion was a special move that a pawn could use when reaching a set position deep behind the opposing team's lines. It allowed them to transform into any piece other than the king. Basically, I had to make sure that I could enter the other team's home base, the student council room. It was on the top floor of the school building. That was my goal. By the same logic, Riser's pawns would be promoted if they made our way to where I was. Plus, unlike our team, he had 8 of them. Each one of them could end up transforming into a queen. Given that the queen was the most powerful piece, we would be in some serious trouble if that happened. From what I gathered, a common strategy during these matches was for each team to send out its pawns first to reduce the number of pieces on the battlefield. Did that mean that I had to take down 8 beautiful pawn ladies all by myself? Things were certainly shaping up to be pretty tough for me. Everyone, please put on these communication devices in your ears, Akeno said, handing out some sort of earphone-like transceiver to each of us. I did as instructed, and the president's voice sounded in my ear. This is how we will coordinate on the battlefield. Being able to receive instructions remotely? That sounded like it was going to be an extremely valuable item. I had to make sure I didn't break it. It's time. The match will begin until there is a victor or until dawn in the human world. Let the game begin. The school bell echoed across the campus. I guess that was the signal. So it was that the curtain rose in our rating game. First things first, we need to eliminate Riser's pawns. We'll be in some serious trouble if all 8 of them can promote to queens, Ria said from her seat on the sofa. She was surprisingly calm. Akeno began to prepare some tea. Aren't we in the middle of a match? I thought. You're pretty calm about this, Prez. The match has only just begun, Issei. A rating game isn't something that you can complete in a short amount of time. Naturally, there are cases where one side will attempt to rush the other, but in general, these are long affairs, just like a real game of chess. I had imagined that we would end up fighting a huge battle scene like you see in the movies, some kind of chaotic ultimate showdown. In a rating game, you have to use the battlefield to its fullest. In most cases, each team will have its base situated in a fort, a castle, or a tower. Areas such as forests, rivers, or lakes are usually located between the 2 bases, and these are typically where individual battles are fought. In that case, the battlefield is our school. Yuto? Right away. At Rios' prompting, Kiba unfolded a large map on the table. It was a layout of the campus and its buildings. Lines crisscrossed the paper, dividing it into a large grid marked with numbers and letters. Immediately, I recognized that it was the layout of a checkerboard. Rios circled the old school building and the new school building with a red pen. Those were the location of both bases. This is the forest near our base. Think of this as being within our territory. On the other hand, the new school building is within Riser's territory. The moment you step inside, you will be entered in its domain. The new school building has a complete view of the schoolyard, so it would be dangerous for us to pass through it. Rios was right. You could make out almost the entire grounds from the windows of the new school building. Now that the match had begun, we couldn't use the magic circle to teleport across the battlefield. In other words, there were no shortcuts. We had to approach on foot. Using our wings to fly wasn't out of the question, but it would be very conspicuous. Then there was the matter of me still being unable to fly. What if we crossed the athletic track and tried sneaking in through the back? I asked. Rios gave it a forced smile. That's the most obvious entry point, and Riser will know it. We would no doubt have dispatched at least one of our pieces near the athletic clubhouse. Probably a rook or a knight. No, it's a wide open space, so he'll want mobility. Most likely, he's positioning a knight and 3 pawns there for a total of 4 pieces. That would give him complete control over the area. President, perhaps we should occupy the gymnasium by the old school building, Kiba suggested. That would give us a shorter route to the new school building, and it's adjacent to both the old and new school buildings, so it will limit their movements. Riaz nodded. Yes, I thought so too. We should take the gymnasium first. Given the location, our opponent may have positioned a rook there. It would be close quarters, so strength would be more important than the knight's agility. Whoa, all these strategies are going over my head. I would be fine if I only worried about my instructions though. I had to do my best not to create any problems. Yuto, Konako, I want you to lay traps in the forest. Take another map with you and be sure to mark where you set the snares. I will give everyone copies when you're finished. Yes. Understood. Kiba and Konoko left at once, taking a map and some odd-looking equipment with them. Everyone else, I want you to remain here on standby until they are finished. Akeno? Yes? Once Yuto and Konoko return, can you cast a mist on some illusions over the forest and skies? Ones that only affect the members of Riser's Familia, of course. Things are sure to heat up once we reach the middle phase, so I'll leave that to you, Akeno. Very good, President. Akeno nodded. With that, our operations had begun. Neither I or Ozzy had received any instructions, though. Prez, what do you want me to do? I hated the idea of standing by and not doing anything. I wanted attacks too. Indeed, you're my pawn, Issei, which means that you would need to be promoted, Riaz replied. Right, I responded eagerly. The Prez beckoned to me. Huh? What does she want me to do, I wondered. Sit here, she instructed. No sooner had I taken my seat than she pointed at her lap. Lay down here. Seriously? The legendary lap pillow? Was it really okay to lay my head down on her immaculate white legs? Thank you, I beamed, instinctively bowing my head in appreciation. I swallowed, and little by little, I lowered myself towards her thighs. A soft sensation pressed against my cheek. Whoa, they're so soft, Prez. I was touching her thighs. This level of physical contact was lethal for a guy my age. I wanted to rub my face against her skin, but I restrained myself. Oh, before I knew it, tears were forming in my eyes. A lap pillow. Out of the hundreds of things that I wanted to do with a girl, this had to rank among the top 10. That it had at last become a reality was almost too overwhelming. Tears kept rolling down my face. What am I doing? I thought. Shouldn't I be focusing on this match? Still, for a perverted high schooler like me who had never been popular with the girls, this was a dream come true. I offered a silent word of thanks to my mom and dad for having brought me into this world. Seeing my reaction, Ria sighed. Are you crying? I'm just so moved that you let me lay my head on your lap. I can't stop. I'll never forget this feeling. I'm so happy to be alive. You do overreact sometimes. If a lap pillow is enough to make you feel that way, then I'll let you do it again. What? You're kidding me. Really? Why is she being so nice? It wasn't important to me anyways. All that mattered was Riaz had given me the okay to do it again. There was no way I wasn't going to take her up on that. Man, my school life sure had gotten pretty great recently. I was moving further and further past Matsuda and Motohama. I did feel sorry for them though. The best I could do for my friends was to hope for they too would come to know this pleasure one day. Huh? That was when I noticed Azia staring at me, with teary eyes of her own. Perhaps it was only my imagination, but it looked like she was pouting. Is she angry? Why? I don't quite understand, but it definitely appeared that way. Riaz rested her hand on my head. This will release a small part of the seal that I placed on you. Huh? A seal? I asked, uncertainly. But at this moment, something inside me swelled. Energy welled up deep from my body, but I had no idea why. It was an incredible feeling, but one wholly different from what I was used to with the boosted gear. The power from my sacred gear flowed into me from somewhere externally. This new strength was instead rising from deep within me and melting comfortably throughout my flesh. The question was, where had it come from? Likely seeing the bewilderment on my face, Riaz leaned into my ear. Do you remember? When I resurrected you, I used all 8 of my pawns. Yeah. At the time, you were too underdeveloped as a demon, so I limited the total capacity of your abilities as a pawn. No normal human would have been able to withstand the full force of 8 pawn pieces so soon after being resurrected. To put this simply, your total strength is only second to Akeno's. However, until you learn how to handle that power, you'll be at risk of it breaking you. As such, I locked it away in stages with these seals. I just released the first of them. If she had released it, then did that mean the force surging through me was my own innate strength? Your training was intended to increase your compatibility not only with the boosted gear, but also with your own abilities. Admittedly, you still have a way to go though. So there had been a point to all the grueling exercises. I was so happy that I'd been able to overcome my near-death experiences. Rhea stroked my head. It was sure wonderful having a beautiful lady pet my hair. I could have sworn I saw Azia's eyes narrow even further, however. Listen here, Issei. Even if your opponent is a girl, you still have to defeat her. You mustn't hold back. They won't show you any mercy. Right. Good boy. When you perform your promotion, make sure that you become a queen. Queens are the strongest pieces on the field. If you do that, it will turn the match in our favor. It feels a bit weird for a guy to become a queen, though. Riaz chuckled at my comment. It's only a name. Don't think too deeply of it. We have fewer members than Riser, which puts us at a disadvantage. You have to be prepared to take other roles. Losing even one of our members is sure to make the fight even more difficult. It sounded like Riaz put a lot of thought into each of our roles and was looking for the best way to utilize us on the field. For the moment, I wondered if charging my powers and releasing a burst of energy at the school building would finish the match quickly. Then I realized it probably wouldn't be that easy. Riser definitely would have anticipated a move like that and had probably already prepared countermeasures. There was a limit to how many moves I could make while powered up, and I wasn't particularly skilled at using my demonic powers, so I couldn't afford to waste them. If I was going to attack, it would be safer to do so, and not to mention more effective after I promoted myself to a queen. Yeah, I would have to just trust in Riaz and the others to help me get where I needed to go. Prez, I'm gonna help you win this. I was serious. Those words came from the bottom of my heart. Upon hearing my oath, Riaz broke into a gentle smile. I look forward to it, my cute little Issei. I was definitely going to help the Prez win. There was no way I was about to let her marry someone like Riser. Riaz's wonderful legs were mine to enjoy right up until Kiba and Konako returned. Thanks to that, I was bursting with energy. Alright, I declared, with mighty determination as I stood outside the entrance of the old school building. Konako was standing beside me. She was my partner for the next stage of its strategy. Very well, Issei, Konako. Once you enter the building, you won't be able to avoid a battle. Stick to the plan. The gymnasium will be crucial, Ria said, seeing us off at the entrance. Konako nodded. Don't worry about us, I added. Our destination was the school gym. There was sure to be a battle there, and Konako and I were going to win it. Losing wasn't an option. I wasn't going to get knocked out of the rating game without first scoring a promotion. I'll start things on my end as well. Kiba, holding a sword against his waist, was ready to. Yuto, please be sure to follow my instructions, Rias cautioned. Understood. Azia, you will stay here with me for now. However, once Issei and Konako give a signal, we'll move out. We can't afford to lose you. Without our healer, we have no chance. Okay. Azia replied loudly in spite of her obvious trepidation. Her healing abilities were our lifeline. Thanks to her, we could afford to take a few risks in the overall approach. Protecting both Azia and our king was necessary for us to come out on top. Akeno, I'll trust you to move when the time is right. Yes, President. Akeno was Rias' strongest servant. According to Rias, a large portion of the mission's success hinged on her performance. We were all counting on those insidious demonic powers hidden behind that warm smile of hers. Having looked over everyone one last time, Rias stepped forward. Very well, my cute servants. I hope you're all ready. There's no turning back now. Our enemy is Riser Phoenix, the prodigy of the immortal House of Phoenix. Let's crush him. Yeah! We all cried out in unison before taking off. Kiba, Konako, and I dashed from the old school building. Issei, everyone, good luck! Azia called out in encouragement. She was waving to us from the entrance. Alright, you can't turn back now, Issei Hyodo. Be ready to break through. We approached the gymnasium. Partway there, Kiba branched off in another direction, as per the plan. I'll see you guys up ahead, he called out. Wait for us there, I shouted and replied. With that, we split up. He had his job to do, and I had mine. Together with Konako, I made my way towards the gymnasium. The main entrance was connected to the new school building, making it unlikely we could enter without being immediately caught. Sneaking in through the back door of the opposite side was a much better idea. When I tried the handle, it wasn't locked. Even from the outside, the gymnasium looked too real to be a replica. If Grapefruit turned around later and told me that this would have been the real Kuo Academy all along, I would have completely believed her. Konako and I entered from the back, behind the stage. The curtains were drawn, so we had a full view of the inside of the hall. I scanned the area from one corner. That's when Konako murmured, "Enemies nearby." But before I had time to register my own surprise, a voice echoed through the hall. "We know you're there, servants of Gremory. We've been waiting for you to show your faces." It was a woman's voice, one of Riser's servants. They must have been waiting for us. In that case, there was no point in hiding any longer. Konako and I stepped onto the stage. In the middle of the hall stood 4 demon women. There was an older woman wearing a Chinese dress, the pair of twins, and a petite girl who had beat me up last time. I had really been hoping I wouldn't bump into her so soon. If I remember correctly, the one in the Chinese dress was a rook. The twins were pawns, as was the petite girl. I knew this only because we had taken a look at a photograph of all Riser's familia members before the match. 3 pawns and a rook. Given that Konako and I amounted to only 1 rook and 1 pawn respectively, we were at a clear numerical disadvantage. Still, an encounter was unavoidable if we were to carry out our own plan. Boosted gear, stand by. Boost! Wasting no time, I began doubling my power. I can do this, I told myself. Issei, you take the pawns, I'll handle the rook. Right. Konako and I faced our respective opponents. The woman in the Chinese dress adopted a martial arts pose, and the petite girl brandished her staff. The twins readied a pair of handheld chainsaws, and with beaming grins... Hold on, chainsaws? The mechanical weapons let out a terrifying sound. What? Are they serious? Surely something like this is too dangerous to bring to a fight, right? Dismemberment time, they sang in gleeful unison. Saying something like that so cheerfully should have been illegal. I didn't want to be cut into pieces. Letting them reach me was out of the question. A short distance away, Konako and the woman in the Chinese dress had already begun exchanging blows. They threw punch after punch at each other, and the fight was quickly becoming a martial arts contest. They were both rooks, so each one of those hits must have carried tremendous force. I had assumed that Konako, with her small frame, would have the advantage when it came to movement, but her opponent was no slouch either, lightly launching into one attack after another. The petite pond girl swung her staff around dramatically. Her name was Milla, if I was remembering correctly. Bitter memories flashed through my mind. I had acted all confident, self-assured, and I had been soundly defeated without even delivering a single blow. Things were going to go differently this time. Cut, 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 cut. The twins were coming right at me, dragging their chainsaws along the floor. A chainsaw roared in my ear as it passed by. Too close. They almost cut my head clean off. I sent one of the twins flying with a shoulder tackle and put some space between myself and the other one. A simple move like that was unlikely to cause my boosted gear to reset, but if I got carried away with something flashy, I risked losing all my increased power. Something came flying toward me from behind. Uh-oh. I managed to dodge that too, though only by a hair. Milla's club passed right by my flank. Yes, I dodged it. I was moving faster than even I expected. Whether it was the result of my training, or something brought on by Ria's lifting the seal earlier, I couldn't say for certain. Either way, this was my chance. I was gonna show everyone what I could do. Unfortunately, at that moment of overconfidence, the edge of the chainsaw grazed my cheek. It hurt, but more than that, it sent blood flying. My uniform had been torn as well. That was a close one.
Boost!
It was time for my second power-up. Clearly, my opponents weren't willing to wait as I charged up. They moved to attack again, but... I turned my body sideways to dodge an attack coming from above, leaped back and dodged the next vertical attack, and then ducked down. I caught my final strike from Milla's staff head on by crossing my arms. Alright, how's that for perfect defense? Stop moving. Why can't we hit him? The chainsaw-wielding twins stamped their feet in frustration. We're gonna break his guard, Milla said. She certainly didn't seem pleased to find her attacks were now ineffective. Too bad for you, I thought. I'd really given my training my best effort. Facing the president and the others would have been impossible if I got my ass kicked all over again.
Boost!
This was it, my third power-up. I was ready. Let's go, Sacred Gear.
Explosion!
Now that I reached the stage, I was ready to fight for real. My whole body was overflowing with energy. I couldn't afford to waste even a single moment of my temporary power-up. I'll deal with you two first. With surprising speed, I bolted towards the twins. This might sound a little conceited coming from me, but it was a damn impressive sprint. My enhanced movements left my enemy pawns little time to react. Realizing her predicament, the first twin swung her chainsaw wildly, but my fist was faster. I sent the first of that chainsaw-wielding pair flying. How dare you hit my sister? The other twin pointed her chainsaw in my direction, but I twisted my body backwards and struck her with a powerful backhand blow. She fell to the floor with a thud. The staff-wielding girl lunged towards me with her weapon. It was the same sort of attack she used to one-shot me in our last encounter, but I wasn't going to let that happen again. I spun around to dodge her thrust, but as I did so, an opening revealed itself as Milla followed through, her attack striking only empty air. This was my chance. Take that! I cried. I struck out with the side of my hand, cleaving right through Milla's staff. My hand throbbed with pain. Evidently, the thing had been a lot stronger than it looked. Before she had a chance to respond, I threw my now disarmed opponent to the ground. The girl let out a loud scream as she rolled across the ground. The strained cry from her gritted teeth belonged to a woman in a Chinese dress. I glanced around, only to find her on the floor holding herself up with her hands. Meanwhile, Konako towered above the other rook, still maintaining her fighting stance. Whoa, even from a curious glance, that Konako was the stronger fighter. Riser will be mad if we lose to a guy like this, spat one of the chainsaw twins, having climbed to her feet. We'll cut you to pieces, the other twin declared as she restarted her chainsaw. Get as worked up as you want, but the preparations for my victory are already complete. It was time for my ultimate technique. Have a taste of my new special move, dress break. With the snap of my fingers, the chainsaw-wielding twins and the girl with the staff each had their clothes get blown away. Yeah, even their underwear was sent flying. Their pale, curvious bodies stood bare before me. All three of them were a little underdeveloped, but it was still a feast for my eyes. Blood started gushing down my nose as I broke into a huge grin. The girls' screams echoed throughout the gymnasium. All three of them crouched low to the ground, hiding their private parts. Ha 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 ha! How do you like my ultimate technique? Dress break. All I had to do was keep imagining your clothes being torn right off and dedicate my demonic abilities to stripping you naked. Yep, I had just poured all my powers into this ultimate move. I didn't have much in the way of demonic power to begin with, so though I spent nearly every waking moment thinking about loose stuff like this, the technique still took everything I had. There was no arguing with the results though. It was a marvel to behold. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. This is why I spent all that time peeling vegetables and fruit using nothing more than my demonic powers. I'd peel them until I thought my mind was starting to slip. For the technique to work, I first needed to come into physical contact with my target. At that moment, I had to then pour my demonic powers into them. Then the end result spoke for itself. You're the worst, the enemy of all women. You're an animal, a lecherous fiend. The chainsaw-wielding twins launched indignant insults at me. I gladly accepted their words, though. I misjudged you. Konako's cold murmur, however, stabbed at my heart. At that moment, a voice sounded from the transceiver in my ear. Issei, Konako, can you hear me? It was the Prez. It looked like Konako was listening in too. Yeah, we're both fine. We're just about ready, I replied. Very good. Akeno has finished her preparations. You know what to do. It was time. Konako and I glanced at each other, exchanging brief nods. Paying no heed to our opponents crouching down on the floor, the two of us sped towards the entrance. Cowards! Riser's servants called out behind us. This is an important strategic position. They weren't wrong. The gymnasium connected the new school building and the old one. Had this been a real game of chess, it would have been the center of the board. That made controlling it absolutely vital. That's precisely why we gathered the four of them in there. That had been our plan all along. Konako and I basically been decoys. Just as the two of us exited the building, there was a blinding burst of light. A huge pillar of lightning crashed down to the center of the gymnasium with deafening roar. By the time things settled, the building had been reduced to rubble. Take that, came Akeno's voice. Above us, Akeno was floating in the air, her black wings spread, staring down at the destruction with a look of pure gratification. Her right hand was held up high above her, and sparks of electricity were dancing around it. 3 of Lord Riser's pawns and 1 of his rooks have been retired. Graphia's voice echoed across the battlefield. Hold on, that one strike knocked out all 4 opponents just now? Seriously? That's when I recalled something Kiba had mentioned to me a while ago. There was some who call Akeno the Vestal of Thunder. Since the president isn't old enough to have played in any official raiding games, Akeno isn't exactly famous, but she is well known among a certain group of enthusiasts. The Vestal of Thunder. Talk about terrifying. If she had hit me with that one attack, I definitely would have croaked on the spot. I made a mental note never to cross her. We did it, Konako. I tried to pat her on the shoulder, but she shrank back. Don't touch me, she hissed, glaring daggers. A disappointing reaction, though I had to admit it was an understandable one. Anyone would have been wary after seeing my ultimate technique. Don't worry, I won't use that move against my allies, I reassured her. It's still disgusting. It looked like she well and truly hated me now. Everyone, can you hear me? Akeno just delivered a flashy finishing move. You've all successfully pulled off the first stage of our strategy. Rias' voice came through the transceiver. She sounded pleased. This had been a part of our overall plan. Destroying the gymnasium had been an important first step, so long as we could ensure several members of Rise's familia in it. Konako and I had entered from the back entrance, but that actually had been a ruse. We'd known that Riser's side would be monitoring that building, and that as soon as we got inside, they would attack. All we had to do was keep them occupied for a short while, then make our escape. As soon as we were out of range, Akeno had demolished the whole building from the sky. We had been bait to lure our opponents into her trap. Having accomplished that, we fell back and left the rest to Akeno. Rias' strategy had gone exactly to plan. We had abandoned the strategic valuable location and used it as a part of our attack. The trick had allowed us to remove 3 pawns and 1 rook, all without losing a single member of our own team. What could have been better than that? Now that she's used it once, Akeno's lightning attack will take time to charge before it can be used again. We can't rely on her for rapid fire assault. Moreover, the other side still has numbers on us. I will depart once she is ready to use it again. Until that time, I'll leave the rest to you. Move on to the next phase. Rias instructed. Right, I replied. With the Prez and Azia moving out, the next order of business was for Konako and me to jump up with Kiba and engage the enemy on the athletic track. Just as we were about to head over, however, there was an ear-rending sound like that of an explosion, and its source. Konako! The petite girl sprawled laying on the ground, and the smoke was rising up from her body. I hurried to her side and took the girl in my arms. Her uniform was in tatters, as if she'd been caught up in an explosion. Several of her pieces had been completely disappeared. Something about that noise reminded me of... Take that, a mysterious voice mocked. Up in the sky, a figure, wings spread wide. She was clad in some kind of mage's outfit, and her face was hidden behind a hood. It was clearly one of Riser's servants, and she'd taken out Konako. Hold on, isn't that Riser's queen? We just run into that bastard's strongest piece? The best moment to move on your prey is when they lower their guard for a minor victory. Sacrificing a few of our many members were perfectly acceptable, if it means capturing some of yours. You are simply too few. Just this one loss will leave you incapacitated, no? Even if you manage to root us, you can't hope to defeat Master Riser. You were better off quitting before you began. The woman let out a mirth-filled laugh. Issei, Akeno, Konako murmured weakly. Her voice was about to give out. I'm sorry. I wish I could have been more useful. There's no need to apologize. You did everything you were supposed to. Just hold on. Once Asia gets here, she'll have you up and... Before I could finish, a bright light suddenly enveloped Konako's body. She turned transparent for a moment before completely disappearing. Lady Rias Gremory's rook has been retired, sounded Grafia's impassive voice. Before the match, Rias had explained that if any of us sustained enough damage that we were no longer able to fight, we would automatically be retired from the match. When that happened, we would be transported to a place where we could receive medical attention. That was why it wasn't a huge problem for anyone to get too beaten up. No one actually died in Rainy Games. Those 4 members of Riser's Familia who Akeno defeated a moment ago had no doubt been transported to the same place as Konako. I knew that. I understood that. It was all kind of a mock battle, but even so, it was just a little too much. When Konako vanished from my arms, I could still feel the phantom of her weight. Damn it. My whole body began trembling with rage. Get down here. I'll crush you. I caught on in provocation at Riser's Queen, completely throwing the next stage of our plan to the wind. Even I knew it was an ill-advised course of actions, but I didn't care. I couldn't forgive her. Konako was in tears the moment she disappeared. Tears of anguish and regret. She should have still been able to fight. Damn it. If I'd seen Riser's Queen coming even a moment earlier, I might have been able to save her. But I just had to let the success of our first phase of our plans go to my head. You're a bold little pawn, aren't you, boy? Shall I destroy you like I did the other girl just now? The mage turned her arm towards me. She was going to attack again. Oh dear. I'm your opponent here, Miss Yuba Luna, Queen of Riser Phoenix, or should I call you the Bomb Queen? Akeno asked as she placed herself between us as if to shield me. I don't like that name, Vestal of Thunder. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I've been looking forward to fighting you. Issei, go find Yuto. I'll take care of things here. But... I began to protest, but for the first time I could remember, Akeno's expression stared back at me and turned stern. My heart skipped a beat. I could feel the icy sting of her glare. Issei, you have your own role to play. Now go. This is my job. She was right, of course. I would just get in her way. I had to see to the task that only I could perform. There was a little else I could do but grit my teeth in frustration. At this, Akeno returned to her usual peaceful smile. Don't worry. I'll avenge Konako. I'll pour my soul into destroying this queen. A golden aura wrapped itself around Akeno's body. It was her demonic power. One look at Akeno in that moment was all it took to know how powerful she was. Risa's queen was the strongest of all the members of her familia after all. Akeno, I'll leave this to you. I called out and took off to find Kiba at the athletic track. A moment later, a tremendous blast of thunder ripped through the air behind me. The battle had been moved to its middle phase.